everyone. Uh, this week, I guess, or this not just this week, but for a couple of months, we would be conducting a budget hearing of the departments and agencies. And for this morning, for today rather, Monday, the 25th, 2011. 9 a.m. will be the Mayors Council of Guam. At 10:30 will be the Office of Public Accountability, and 1 p.m. will be the Guam Election Commission. And for the listening audience as well, on Wednesday, which is the 27th, 9 a.m. will be Guam Memorial Hospital Authority, 1 p.m. Department of Law. Thursday, the 28th, will be 8 a.m. Guam Community College, and 1 p.m. the Public Defender Service Corporation. This is the committee of Senator Ben Pangilinan, who's currently off island, but as his vice chair, he has asked if I would continue the hearings, the public hearings for the different departments and agencies until his return. So this is the committee on, well, there's a long title, but the most important is Office of Finance and Budgeting. So for those who are present this morning, I'd like to recognize them. Of course, the oversight chair for the Mayor's Council is Senator Tina Rose Munya Barnes, Senator Aline Yamashita, Senator Mana Tyron, and Senator Chris Duenas. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. So what we'd like to go ahead and do then is that you've situated yourself, and I can tell you're so experienced already that you know exactly where to be at. So I'd like to recognize, of course, the President of the Mayor's Council, Melissa Savares, who's here to testify, and Mr. Sablan, who is the Executive Director also of the Mayor's Council. So, and I recognize as well the Mayor of PD, as all of a sudden I'm going blank, Mayor Ben Gumatauta. And anybody else am I missing? No. Thank you. So we'll go ahead then and start with who would you like to? Okay, Mr. Sablan, then you may start.
Good morning, and Manassas to all of you.
Oh, one moment. I'm so sorry. I completely forgot. We have our Sergeant at Arms here, who, because it is a budget hearing and by law, is that we would have all of you sworn in who are going to testify. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and once again, Manassas to all of you, and we wish that Senator Ben Pangilinan could be here to join us, but wherever it's at, we wish him well. Of course, today is our budget hearing, and Mayor's Council of Guam first on the list, but the budget that we have submitted to the 31st Guam Legislature, of course, is straightforward, cut and dry. We tell you like it is what is it that we need and where we need to increase and why we're increasing. It's all explained in our budget submission. There may be a tendency to say, "Oh, why such a big increase?" And there are things that are going to happen. Obviously, this is an election year, and at the end of this year, there are things that are happening with our personnel that must be addressed. And if it's not addressed during this budget submission, it has to be addressed sometime in January. And so to avoid that, we have asked that that be included in this year's budget. Our budget submission, as far as personnel is concerned, we can go through the list, and we are asking actually for an additional 8 additional staff for the various villages that have a population increase. If you remember, some of you that were in the legislature back in the 28th, 27th Guam legislature, there was a study done on the positions in the Mayor's Council of Guam per village. and that study has actually never been acted upon, um, and it's based on what is the justification for the number of personnel you have in each village. As you know, right now, every village is only entitled to 5 maintenance people. Whether you're a small village or whether you're a very large village, there is no difference. Everyone gets the same by law. And this is something that mayors and vice mayors have been looking over. Is it really equitable to have budgets split amongst the villages solely on a as equal basis in everything, in operations, in personnel, and salaries? And when you really come down to look at it, at this point in time, it is not. When you have Dedida with over 40,000 people compared to the village of Yamatic with over 1,000 people, and you have the same amount of people servicing the villages, it just does not make sense that a small village would have just as much as a big village. And I know Mayor Savares is here, and she would probably testify and tell you that she cannot continue to operate Dedido the best way she can with only the 5 personnel that she has. And the village of Yamatic, same thing. Mayor Dean will probably tell you that he cannot operate the village of Dedido with only the 5 personnel that he has. But that's his opinion. Well, what we're saying is that we need to do a baseline. If it's 5 personnel now for every village, then we'll leave it at that. But we need to look at the bigger villages and allow them the opportunity to be given more staff. And we've included that study with our budget submission, so you can see where this additional, in fact, the amount of personnel we're asking now does not even equal to the numbers that are being recommended by that study. We're just going at a very conservative rate to increase these big villages. On the other note, you'll see in the budget as well that we've always appropriated funds to the different villages, especially in the public safety area, based on road mileage. Road mileage based since 1996. We're now in 2012. And I don't think that works either. I think we need to, if we're going to get anything current, we might as well take the 2010 budget population, the population of each village, as something that's the very current. We cannot keep waiting for Public Works to do an assessment of all the village roads and tell us how much mileage there is in each of these roads. 1996 to 2012 is a long time. And this is where the disparity comes in again. Dedido may be the biggest villages, but you may have fixed roads, more roads, and open more roads in the village of Sinahanya or in Aganya Heights. And so that entitles them to more of the appropriation because of the fact that they just open more village roads. More mileage is given to them. But if we went through through population, it is there. It tells you how many people are in the village of Dedido. It tells you how many people are in the village of Sinahanya or in the village of Aganya Heights. And so we based the division of our internal operations money based on population. That again would of course be more justifiable than you just using the road mileage, especially since it has not been updated for all these years. As far as operations contractual, you'll see that we have also asked for some money in contractual to provide us with a firm for accounting or for an accounting personnel. As you know, we have brought on upon ourselves quite a few other programs that require a bit of accounting. We have now the non-appropriate funds for each of the villages. We have the Liberation Day festivities, and now we have the Senior Center operations. And we only have 2 ladies in our office, and they're not actually even accounting people. They're just clerk typists. And it is the recommendation of the public auditor that either we be given a budget for contractual to get these services, or that we hire personnel to cover for this, because the fact that there are 19 villages and and all have non-appropriated funds, and we have deliberation, we just don't have the personnel to concentrate on doing the accounting for all the 19 villages. We have checked with the Department of Administration, and you know, even if we wanted to hire accounting personnel for our office, actually there would be employees out of the Department of Administration, because all accounting personnel are actually from the Department of Administration. We have had our two ladies who do a lot of our accounting be given a desk audit. Unfortunately, if they are found to be qualified to be accounting technicians, they would have to make a choice whether they would still want to remain with the Mayors Council of Guam or work for the Department of Administration. Or we would have to enter into an MOU with DOA to keep these two ladies within our office while they are accounting technicians. So we're asking for that $50,000 to be able to provide for contractual service, or if not contractual, then we'll find a way to upgrade these two personnel. But once they are upgraded to accounting technicians, then we won't need these additional personnel to cover for the job that they are doing as far as maintaining all the incoming requests for procurement and whatnot for all the 19 villages. You would also notice that we have asked for a minimal increase of $100,000 in the different categories: the village street funds, the public safety funds. We asked for a bit of an increase in the grass maintenance for each of the schools. And by the way, that's working out very well now, since we've given the Mayors Council of Guam the appropriation directly to the revolving fund. It is now a good procedure. I mean, the vendors are happy. I think the only provision that we may ask that be placed in there under that section of the budget is that we continue to allow small businesses, like a person that only has himself or herself working, cutting grass, or has a brother or another family member joining him in the company or her in the company, to continue to do this, because we have had larger companies complaining to the Department of Labor that they are being at a disadvantage when it comes to trying to get contracts with the grass cutting at the schools, simply because they state that they have to abide by the prevailing wage laws, they have to abide by all the insurance laws and things like this. And so where you get a small businessman who's willing to cut the grass at $1,000, the very next quote that comes in wants to cut it at $5,000. And so, you know, although we of course go for the $1,000, we don't want to continue to be on an annual basis being questioned as to why that person can't compete with me because I got to pay all of these things, and you're a little contractor, you know. But that's just it. It's a small business person, and I think we need to probably put something in law to allow these small business people to be given the first opportunity to continue to do this kind of work. I mean, we even looked at, and I know that the mayors here have looked at, providing some incentive for nonprofit organizations themselves to come in and maintain the grass at the schools as a source of revenue for their organization, for their baseball teams, for what? I mean, you know, cutting grass, it does not require anything except a bush cutter and manual labor and hard effort. And so if we are able to do this, I think we'll be able to spread at least an opportunity to other people, nonprofit organizations, baseball teams, instead of going out there community just asking for money, that they be given this opportunity to do something worthwhile, and at the same time we be able to give them the funds, because we are now able to give them the funds right away because we have the funds into our account. And I was just going to ask that we look at that and maybe put in a provision for that. The rentals of our facilities, of course, you know that we're still over in the J&G complex, and we still have two offices, PD and in Arahan, that are on rental property. I know that in Arahan is actively looking at trying to get maybe some GURA or HUD funds community grants to see if they can refurbish or rebuild the Arahan Mayor's office. For the PD Mayor's office, the property right now still belongs to the church, although we do have the old PD Mayor's office. To renovate it actually costs more than renting annually. But at some point in time, we do have to look at trying to have our own facilities. The mayor of PD is here, and we do have, we did not have it when we submitted this budget. He does have an agreement with the Navy. We all remember the old USO property across the PD power plant. That has now been turned over to the PD Mayor's office. It's a big property, it's prime property, and of course the provisions in that MOU with the PD Mayor's office is that it must be used for the PD Mayor's office and the business sections of the property. It's up to the mayor if he wants to use it to make money, to continue for operations of the PD Mayor's office, but it is not for profit, and that is explicit in the agreement with the Navy. That agreement is good up to 2017. It's a 5-year agreement, but the PD Mayor's office, of course, Mayor Gomatauto, wants to move into that piece of property, but of course it requires that we also allocate him funds to operate out of that property, and that's utilities. It's a very there's no rental, but the utilities right now, as the Navy has given us, it costs around $4,000 a month. Mayor Gomatauto said that he can operate that whole facility at half that cost because he won't be opening up everything in the facility. They've also given him special permission to operate a certain area out of the property for bingo. And again, that's explicit in his agreement, and that's only to help him and assist him to come up with money to pay for utilities and maintenance costs and whatever for that property. The other thing that has come up since this budget submission is the Hagatna Mayor's office. Now, the Hagatna Mayor's office is situated within the community center. Mayor Tayama has been harping and asking and begging my office if there's anything we can do to assist her to either renovate her office or find some other space. If any of you would come down to her office and just take a visual inspection of her office, you'll see that not just one wall, but all the walls that are internal are only being held up by the termites that are there. Her office, her private office itself, you could see the trails of the termites all over the walls. What has happened since this budget submission is that the old Hagatna fire station has been turned over also to the Hagatna Mayor's office. And we are actually looking at changing that into and becoming the Hagatna Mayor's office and using the whole community center for other programs that the mayor has. But then that requires, again, additional funds. It's not in this budget, but we have estimates that have come in that it's cost around $50,000, labor and materials, to completely gut out the existing Hagatna fire station to make it into the Hagatna Mayor's office. it's it's something that I think is $50,000 is a good investment to put in to change that fire station into the Ag and Mayor's office, especially when continuing in the old office that she has is just going to continue to cost us more money, more documents being eaten up by termites, more walls. Just gutting it out and changing it into a whole area for Zumba, or changing it for a whole area for the youth, is certainly a better alternative. Something else that has come up since this budget submission is for the village of Dededo. We're all aware of Lencho Park. I know the mayor can testify, but she has had a very interested investor come in and offer her a win-win situation to turn the Lencho Park into a sports complex, if you will. At their cost, it's like a BOT concept, build, operate, and transfer. But she was asking me how we can do it, and I think the only way we can do that is through legislation, authorizing her and the Municipal Planning Council to get these proposals and see what they can do with turning the Lenzo Park into the facility. And she probably has more to tell you on that as to what they envision this park to be. But again, it's someone that wants to invest, much like for the Northern Sports Complex. They just want to take this whole park and turn it into a big sports complex for the village of Dededo. And we do have the Northern Sports Complex, but we all know that Dededo is such a large village that any additional sports or recreation areas that we provide will certainly not just help Dededo, but help Jigo and Tamuning as well. So she would come up, and I said, as I said, I think that it will require legislation authority for her to be able to have herself and the Municipal Planning Council of Dededo enter into such negotiations. The other addition to our budget that we have requested is, as I had mentioned earlier, is at the end of this year. As you know, it's an election year. So obviously, it's the end of the 4-year term. And so all the employees, they're all unclassified, are given their annual leave lump sum payments. And as we had done 4 years ago, we already had the change of mayors, wherever the changes were. We already had people sworn in, but we could not pick up new people that the mayors wanted, simply because we still had the old employees on that needed to be paid their annual leave. And I know Senator Tina worked very hard on that to get them their appropriation. We did, but it was like biting your nails at that time, as we didn't know when it was going to happen. And so this year we've asked that it be included in this budget, and we certainly would accept a provision that none of that money for the annual leave be spent until January of 2013. It's the same money. We're asking for a little bit over $500,000 to make those payments. We've also asked for $25,000 to cover for the inauguration of the mayors and vice mayors in January. We know that there will be new mayors, and we know that there will be new vice mayors, and we know that because there's some that are retiring. So in some villages that will happen. And so instead of each of the mayors taking $1,000 out of their operations budget, which we have done before when there was no appropriation, we're asking if we can be given a $25,000 appropriation to cover for the costs of their inauguration. We've also asked for additional provisions in the miscellaneous provisions of the budget, as we've always asked for every year, and that's to use our lapses and our carryover money to pay for any prior year obligations, and also the authority to make payments. on those prior year obligations with the lapses and the current budget. Something that we brought up in our last year's budget that, of course, was not entertained, and it's not in this budget, but because we're here testifying, we might as well bring it up. And that is that all of our over 200 employees never get an increment. Some of them have worked for a mayor for over 20 years, and they've never gotten an increment. Their salary is whatever it is since they started till now. If the mayor has a little bit budget that's left in their personnel that he did not use, then he turns around and tries to give them a little few cents here and there. But we're asking for legislative authority to allow the mayors that if their budget allows it, the personnel budget allows it, that they be given the authority to go ahead and increase the salary of their personnel within their personnel budget without getting any additional appropriation. Allow them to be able to increase the salary of that worker, especially because, like I said, they're unclassified and they have no salary increment. I know the mayors and vice mayors have asked this body to also look at their salary. $47,000 that the mayor makes is simply, if you look at the whole government of Guam, is simply, it's been like that for the past, I think, umpteen years. There was a recommendation by the public auditor that we request that the salary of a mayor and vice mayor be made 90% of a senator's salary. Whether that would work, I don't know. It would bring them to a little bit closer to, or a little bit over $50-some thousand a year. But having said that, I know that the mayors and vice mayors will not accept a salary increase without this body looking first at the salaries of the unclassified employees. Like I said, no increments, no salary adjustments, and it just to them and to me, it is not fair that if the upper level is going to get anything and the lower does not, then we would rather just keep it the way it is. But we would like for this body to at least be able to think of that. The other areas that we've asked for the budget is simply what we've asked every year: the President's Contingency Fund, the Association of Mariana Island Mayors Fund. We did include in this budget capital outlay requests. This is again something that we requested last year. What we simply did here was we just took the requests of all the mayors based on privilege, those that requested, and submitted it with this budget. It comes up to a little bit over $1.5 million. And these are requests to fix their gyms, to get equipment to operate. As you know, they even call Public Works to get backhoes or to get this, and Public Works is not able to assist because they don't have these equipments. To be able to fix the potholes in their villages, to be able to pay for more street lights in their villages. It's a different amount for each of the villages, but nonetheless, we include it here because in some point in time we have to address it. Some of the gyms are really almost in complete disrepair. So we ask this body to, again, if there is some capital outlay money to be given, that you also consider uh, these facilities in the Mayor's Council. Another thing that we have inherited um, since this budget submission, of course, is the senior center operations. And though it's been going well, we have the senior citizens that are very happy with how it's being operated. Um, to our surprise, when we had the inspections of these facilities, when we took them over, um, many of these centers have not been maintained over these years. And so the fire department has issues with the centers. Homeland Security has issues with the centers. Public Works has issues with the centers. And these are items that when we assumed the centers were not made part of the budget that was given to us. In fact, ever since we took over at the end of March, 4 centers have already had to have their air cons either repaired or replaced because they just conked out. We've had to close the Hagatna Senior Center a couple of weeks ago because of sewage backup. We've had to close the Tamuning Senior Center's office simply because there's too much condensation on the floor from an effective air conditioner. And so the mayor didn't want to risk having the seniors slip on the floor. And so while we have been able to replace and repair those air cons simply because we just looked at our budget and said, well, no, we can't put a stop to this program. We've got to find some way to do it. The mayor's come up with, and our office get together and find somewhere in our budget to be able to fix these things. But it's not in this budget, but then we would also ask to be considered that because it's not in the federal funds that we are being given, to be given some maintenance money to upkeep these 12 centers that we have. Like I said, and the mayor will testify, if this ever came up for bid, we will not be bidding for the operations of these centers. We have taken over a program simply because we believed that it was the right thing to do. We wanted to make sure that our seniors continue to have a place to go and continue to have a program that they can appreciate and enjoy. But the amount of work involved in running a senior center operations almost requires a separate division out of the Mayors Council of Guam. And while we do have very hardworking site managers that we call recreation leaders, and we have a very hardworking program coordinator that is overworked, the amount of people that we have now compared to what it was when it was under a private organization, it's about 15 people less. We're still operating, we're working, but we're finding out now that we are overworking our site managers and our program coordinator. And we can't take this work and give it, again, as an additional work to our administrative assistants that are in the mayor's offices. Although they are helping, conducting and processing and doing the paperwork and the reports and the accounting information. Like I said, it's something that if it came up for bid, you won't find the Mayors Council of Guam bidding for it. But having said that, we will also not just let it go. If nobody wants to take it, we will continue to do it as long as the funds are there made available by the Department of Public Health. It's been difficult. We started this program the end of March up to May 31st. In fact, our site managers and our program coordinator did not get paid last Friday simply because of a quirk in the paperwork. They will be paid either today or tomorrow. But what's happening with the release of funds from the Department of Public Health and Social Services is that our MOUs are actually one was good till May 31st. Now this next one was only good to August 2nd. And then they tell us that we'll be able to get another one up to September 30. But the reason why these MOUs are only to a certain period of time is because the money that they get only covers that period of time. And until they get the money in their hands, they are not able to tell us that we have this MOU till September 30. Yes, it's a federal program. And so the quirk that happened with this last MOU is that although they gave us an account, there was no money in it. It was not uploaded. It was not uploaded till Friday. And so now it's there, but we will be able to pay the employees of the Senior Center operations. And so that's some of the difficulties that we face with the Senior Center operations, is that we would love to have the funding made available through September 30, but we understand too that if they don't have it, they don't have it. And they're just waiting for the release, I guess, from wherever they're waiting for it, the federal government or Region 9, to get that for them to get it to us. That's all I have. As far as the other parts of the budget are all self-explanatory. Unless the mayor wants to say anything.
Mayor, would you like to add on to the testimony?
Okay, thank you, and good morning. For the record, my name is Melissa Savares, Mayor of Dedido, and also the President of the Mayors Council of Guam. Speaker and senators that are present here, I'd like to reiterate what some of the things that Angel pointed out about our budget request. For many years, the mayors continue to be the front line for the people in our villages, and we've seen our villages continue to grow. Several of you continue to come to groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings for facilities and programs that we continue to have for our people in the communities. The points that we're trying to make here is, over the years, we've also seen the governor's request, financial task force request to cut in many of the agencies. And as those agencies cut and reduce the number of personnel that they have to serve their organizations, the mayors continue to pick up what's not done by the agencies. For instance, Department of Parks and Recreation have really cut and streamlined their operations. However, with the equipment that we have, and with the help with a lot of partnership with DOC and the 5 maintenance people that we have in our communities and other organizations, we continue to be creative to see that these parks are not don't have overgrown vegetation. The residents continue to use them by coming together to maintain and cover the shortfall, not just Parks and Recreation. Department of Public Works, with the shortage that they have as well. Potholes continue to happen in the villages. Federal highways need to be cleaned, and highway maintenance just cannot get out of there out to the communities because of the reduction in staff that they have. The mayors come out with their, the 5 maintenance that we have and organizations and partners that we have to assure that these things that are under the responsibility of various agencies continue to get done in our communities. So we as mayors, being frontline, we want to make sure that things happen in the communities that should be partnered with between the agencies and organizations that have the shortfalls. We will come out there and we will cover those gaps. But it is difficult. We are not taking away as we continue to grow. We don't want to take away from what we already have, but to supplement the larger communities, as Angel had mentioned earlier. Jigo, Mangilao, Tumuning, and of course Dedido have grown by the thousands, and we continue to see housing areas go up as well. In Lada, where this property sat idle for over 10 to 15 years, because of litigation. The infrastructure is there. They're going to build 200 elderly homes. These Manamkos have to get in and out of that facility. You know, it's good. These are good projects. We have affordable homes going up in many areas throughout the island. When we open areas like this, it opens up new roadways because we're getting to these families. These are the roadways, the additional roadways that are not measured by Department of Public Works, that are again tasked to for us to maintain. So these are many things all together, and you know, we don't complain, and it's times like this when we come out for budget hearings, the mayors and vice mayors continue to say, it's in our village, let's get it done. No matter how hard. Someone said to me, well, the other day, well, my people work 7 days a week or 5 days a week and they get the weekends off. That's wonderful. The mayor's office's staff, whether they be clerical and, you know, administrative staff, gym staff, maintenance staff, we all work 7 days a week because we want to make sure that Tan Maria and Mr. Jose or Mr. Cruz have what they need to have, and we will provide it for them. So we continue to serve our community and the residents and to assure that things are provided for them. It's summertime. We have to make sure that our parks are going to be safe so that the kids can come and spend the day, and the families can come and take part in activities for, you know, as a group, and they're going to be safe out there. So with that, please, you know, I know there's an increase in this year's budget, but as Angel had justified, you know, this is the end of the mayoral term. This coming fiscal year, we have 2 mayors that are actually not seeking re-election. So those mayors and their staff that are leaving will need to be compensated before they leave. Okay. Sinahanya, Mayor Roque is retiring. Yes.
Thank you very
Thank
much, Mayor. The Office of Finance and Budget, of course, with their staff, is that they've done an analysis, basically, of all the budgets. And I was asked, of course, by the chairman, is that, you know, based on their preparations, that's exactly the format in which I'm going to be conducting these hearings. That, you know, he's asked that I do. And I would proceed then, is that the Mayors, of course, Council of Guam submitted, you know, your budget to the Office of Finance with a 39% increase in the base operations as compared to the current. The total miscellaneous appropriations request also from the Mayors Council, there's an increase of 15% above, again, the current appropriations, and you've gone through some of those. So so in addition, then of course you're asking for the continuing operations, that meaning all those unexpended balance funds that were appropriated to the mayors for 2011-2012 that has not lapsed. You want it to be then available for expenditures to use in other categories with the exception of personnel. And lastly, you're requesting for the authority to make payments on prior year obligations. You would also like to use the unexpended appropriation funds to pay for prior year obligation that has been incurred. In looking at the 2012 appropriations versus the 2013 requests, and because in the packet a calculation was not done for the insurance benefits, which is the medical, dental, life insurance. So that has brought, of course, you know, that dollar amount to 309. I mean, the appropriation was $396,258,000, and so therefore that's, you know, carries straight across. The increase, of course, that you're asking versus what the governor had submitted, where the governor then has actually sent, of course, the Mayor's Council's budget in a lump sum amount. and which also is inclusive of other semi-autonomous agency budgets such as the Attorney General of Guam, the Public Defender's Office, the Legislature, the Office of the Public Accountability, and the lump sum, of course, appropriations for these agencies is 1.8 million decrease compared to 2012. So with that total amount of $55 million for those autonomous agencies, which also includes the courts, then the governor's office submitted a $53.4 million budget lump sum, and therefore there is a decrease of $1.8 million. So the governor, in essence, is saying that for all of these departments and agencies, that he's looking at decreasing $1.8 million. So that's going to be a challenge, of course, because at the same time, although the governor's office is one branch in itself, then the other two branches, the courts and the legislature, which he does not necessarily dictate what that dollar amount is, but the other semi-autonomous agencies, of course, which, he's requesting that those cuts be made. There was also an 8% increase in personnel object categories. And what those are is the retirement increase went from 28.30% to 30.90%. There's an increase in medical benefits, dental and health. There's an increase then in salary increment for the administration classified personnel. And then there's a request for 8 additional community maintenance workers. So in 2012, you were at 211 positions, unclassified 204, and then for 2013, you were requesting to go up to an additional 8 unclassified personnel. On the different categories for contractual, for repair and service maintenance of computers, printers, electronic typewriter, iConnect radios, official vehicles, rental, internet, maintenance of vehicles, printing, airtime service for authorized cell phones of $25,000, contractual services for your inaugural expenses, $25,000, contractual services for an accounting firm for the 19 districts to deal with the non-appropriated funds, you want $50,000, so that's the increase in contractual services of $100,000. Then for office space rental, there was a nominal increase of 4% in office space due to the net increase and or decrease in office space for Inarajan PD Mayor's office. So then apparently the Inarajan Mayor's office was able to decrease their annual rent by $1,560, but the PD Mayor's office increased their annual rent by $6,000. And for the main office, MCOG office rental remained the same for the current year. For supplies and materials, the current year appropriation for supplies and materials was $1,000. However, in your request, you've submitted a $25,000 increase, and you've listed all the normal requests for supplies. For miscellaneous, so that's where that 39% increase went. For the miscellaneous, which is an increase then of about, 15%, they are for the gymnasium operations for the 7 district. You're asking for $50,071. For the humanitarian service assistant, community events for the youth and senior citizens, sports entrance fee, supplies, materials, and equipment for 19 district mayors, you're asking for $475,000. For the president's contingency fund, you're requesting for $20,000. For The AMIM, let me see, what is that? That's the Association of Mariana Islands Mayors, Vice Mayors, and Elected Municipal Council Members. You're asking $20,000. And then, of course, the accrued unused annual leave sum payment of $664,000. So your total miscellaneous is $1,229,071. So for power, there's an increase in your utilities. So what in essence you've done is that you've done an estimate. You took your actual increase in water, power, and telephone, and you did an increase by 20% for power, 15% for water, and 5% for telephone. So for a capital outlay, the Mayor's Council is requesting for $1.5 million for capital outlay needs, and this is the same request for 2012, but which was not appropriated due to revenue constraints. And of course, you've listed, what you wanted to do with that would be for equipment requests, renovations, repairs to offices, gyms, and village community centers. So the questions that from the analysis, of course, is for fiscal year 13, the executive branch requested a decrease appropriations to all semi-autonomous agencies by $1.8 million. What can the Mayor's Council cut from its fiscal year budget submission if the executive request was adopted as is?
Good question. I'm for the record, I'm going to say, we're already living on a bare bones budget. If we don't get the requests for the unused annual leave, it's going to come up again in January. If we don't get the contractual for the accounting firm or for the accounting techs, if we don't get the increases of the 8 personnel that we're asking for the larger villages, then our budget would still be what it was in 2012. There's your one. If the 1.5 million in capital outlay is not entertained, then it's cutting. We certainly can't cut from personnel. I mean, we're asking for more. How can we cut? There are other ways maybe that we can raise some revenue to assist the council. And now that we have our non-appropriated funds, if the council is given the authority or the villages are given the authority to solicit donations or to accept donations from private entities or from entities that want to take a sports recreation field and upgrade it at their own expense, working through the municipal planning council of the various villages. That may be one way of being able to save money without taking it out of the operations of the different mayors. These kind of things, though, require legislative authority. But when it really comes down to it and asking us where can we cut, the power, the utility bills, although we try to cut, it gets negated by the fact that the power rates go up, the utility rates go up. And so although you see an increase there, what we've taken is the highest percentage of increase that the utilities give us, and we carry that as the increase for our rates. Even though we get a decrease sometime in the year, it goes right back up a couple months later. So there's no savings. So we use that as our basis for what we pay in utilities. And mind you, even though the mayors and vice mayors would want to be able to have their employees rest on weekends, the centers and the gyms and the baseball fields on those lights are not turned off on weekends. And these are areas where we can cut. But do you sacrifice providing for the community simply because you want to save money, and I think not. The more programs we provide for our youth and for our Manamco and for our people, it's better for them, you know. And like I said, even though our employees work 5 days a week, they work 7. There's no extra compensation. There's no such thing as overtime in the Mayors Council of Guam, and you'll never see an overtime request in any of our budgets. But we work our people past their 8 hours, past their 40 hours a week. And so and while we realize that the whole government of Guam as a whole needs to cut somewhere, somehow, I think asking the mayor's offices to do that would be asking them to cut their programs, would be asking them to get rid of some of their personnel, would be asking them to close on weekends. And even if it's mandated, I think we will not be able to do such a thing. We will go back and take a look at our budget and offer, I think, solutions as to how we can increase our revenues instead of telling you where we want to cut, because simply, as I stated earlier, we're already at a bare bones budget. We've explained everything that we've asked for and why we needed those kind of funds. And so to go back and try to cut here and there, mind you, we've lived on the public safety and social education programs, on the village street funds, on the island-wide beautification. We've lived with the same amount for the past 4 fiscal years. We've never gotten an increase, although every year we've asked for an increase. And every year expenses go up, but we've never had an increase in anything that in any of our categories. The only thing is that even on our personnel, it's been status quo for many years. And so I think it's, like I said, it's not easy. We've lived with the same budget, barely or almost the same budget for the past 4 fiscal years. And to come now again and to ask us to cut, I mean, we're barely staying afloat. And we're still providing more programs than we did 4 years ago. And that's not because we got more money. It's just simply because the mayors and vice mayors have found different ways to be able to do it. So to answer you, Madam Speaker, you know, we are one government, and we will do whatever we can to help one another. But to come and ask where can we cut, I can just tell you right now that it's very difficult to find anything in this budget to be able to cut.
The question, of course, still has to be asked of everybody.
Yes.
We definitely hear you. We know, you know, where you stand in terms of the community. But we all know, and the governor's made this public announcement many times, that he needs to cut the entire government of Guam's budget by $43 million. And the question is now, and, you know, was brought to our attention because we've been through this, where sometimes we would say, well, we want to make the priority to be, you know, health, safety, and education, and many senators would go in wanting to protect those. But once you have one sacred cow, then everybody are going to take the biggest, you know, cuts of all. And at one time, of course, finally, if I remember, in the 26 Guam Legislature, I think, I think it was under that term, that then finally a cut was made to everyone. The whole argument was no, not these 3. But then they said everyone has to share in the cut. So, and then that's when a 10% cut, I think, was made to all departments and agencies across the board. There is an increase of $100,000 for the following, which is the Street Maintenance Beautification Project, Island-Wide Village Beautification Project, Public Safety and Social Education Programs. Can you share with us what is the council's plan in terms of how that additional $100,000 increase is to be spent?
As I had mentioned earlier, we've lived with that same amount for the past 4 fiscal years. We've always asked that you please increase it by $100,000, which does not happen, of course, because of budget constraints. But it will simply allow the mayors and vice mayors the opportunity to give more out to the community, provide more programs, and to cover for certain increases in those programs as, due to the way the economy is now. Not getting it simply means that we continue to just live within our means and continue to provide the programs that we already have. Getting it means that we are able to add that new program or add that beautification program or, do another public safety program. It's not something that if we don't get it that we close. No, it's just something that we have asked annually. If you look back at our past four budget submissions, you'll see that it's the same amount that we've got, $100,000. It's just something that we just said, well, let's ask for that amount, just simply to cover for
So you
inflation
have-
and all that.
So in essence, you don't have a breakdown, a formula in which you're doing, you want to be able to do this?
No,
in
we just
terms of
asked for
what
that.
that
Right.
$100,000 increase was for?
No, it's just for the same programs except because they cost more.
Okay.
That's simply what it is.
Now, has there been a user fee schedule that has been adopted by the mayors for the facilities such as your gyms, your community centers, and equipment implemented to help with the daily operations?
No, there is no adopted user fee schedule. It's been tried. We've been trying. Senator Tina's been trying. Senator Marcel has been trying. Tyrone's been trying. I simply told her that if this was to happen, it needs to happen before this year. And let me just state it the way it is. This is an election year. To do a user fee, to use a gym, or to use a baseball field, or to get canopies, or to get chairs, or to use the mayor's office, although it's necessary, we must do it at some point in time. You're going to see the outrage of the community. They're going to say, I pay my taxes. I already give my fair share. Why are you charging me to use canopies that came out of my taxes? Or why are you charging me to use a community center that I pay taxes for? Or why are you charging me? It has to be done. Sure, it has to be done. All I had mentioned when I had testified is that if we're going to do it, we needed to do it before this year and get it in place. We can still do it, but like I said, you're gonna see the outrage of the community.
Madam Chair, for the record, I just want to note that the public law there was a public law that was passed and signed by the governor, Senator Mana Silva Tyron's bill, and I co-sponsored, that gave you guys the authority to assess the fees for your gyms, and I know that it's just a matter of
We need to
implementation.
have need to have you sworn in first.
Sure.
Because then,
Yeah.
can you ask, please,
Sergeant of
Sergeant
Arms?
Arms?
Can I just add to the user's fee? In my community, I do have a user's fee for my 2 senior citizen centers. It's a minimum. It's $150 if they're going to use it for a party. However, for public hearings and meetings, and it's those things are waived. But if they're coming in to use it for a party, yes, there is I do have a user's fee for my 2 facilities. The gym, and of course that helps me defer some of the cost for the repairs of my air conditioners, my plumbing problems that I have in electrical. That helps me with some of that cost. The user's fee for the gymnasium, though, because all the programs that I do have there are youth programs, and of course we don't charge our youth programs the user's fee. I do have 2 adult leagues that do use the gym, and they do all the maintenance repairs that are necessary at the facility. So the cost of those repairs at the gym are in kind through the 2 adult groups that are using the facilities.
And just to make it clear, the intent of the public law that was implemented earlier this year was to allow the mayors to establish their fees as they see fit and set those monies aside so that the money can be earmarked for specific repairs at the gymnasiums and facilities that you have under your purview.
What I remember when I answered that there's no user fee, well, there's none that has been adopted by the Mayors Council of Guam. Each village has on their own certain user fees, which we need to come up with one uniform one, because it has created problems where one villager will say, well, I'm not going to go to that village because they're charging me $100 for a canopy. I can go to Mayor so-and-so and I get it for free. And so as far as that being being adopted, there is not. Yeah.
And I appreciate that comment, because what you said earlier was, we don't want to make any cuts. We'd rather look at how we can bring in more money. So maybe you guys could sit together and establish that fee so that we don't look at making cuts within the villages, or at least in the community centers and the gymnasiums, and you'll have that set fee in place.
I think as one of the more active community centers, and both parties have used our community center, and still no payment yet, so maybe we can talk about that later. But the people that actually use, and I found that the people that do use the community centers are people that can't afford to go to the hotels, that when they have a bridal shower or a little get-together, it's because of that. I've hosted several family reunion meetings. I host Gumamami for the last 30 years, rent-free, as part of the people of Guam's gift to the people with disabilities. A lot of us host dance organizations, nonprofits there also. So what people don't see outside of that, they just think mayor's office budget. They don't see the other additional things that we do with that. So, things that we give, canopies, chairs for funerals, when even just sitting down and talking with Angel, where do we cut? I said, if you look at the enacting legislation for mayors, it's A through R. So pick one of those and tell us which one you don't want us to do, and then we'll be fine to do that. But there's a lot of things that are required of us, public health-wise, agricultural-wise, public works-wise, that everyone's saying, oh, just check your mayor, just check your mayor, check your mayor. And I'm like, I'm not sure what else to do. And so I was saying, I'll just stop cutting the grass. Maybe that'll save us some money here and there, but we know we just can't do that. And so it's hard to say I want to charge somebody when these people already have, no organization whatsoever to do this. And they're there because, like Angel says, they're asking the community, saying, hey, can I just borrow it for an hour just to have a Red Cross meeting or Varo meeting? Sure. Governor's office uses the building as well. Agencies use it for town meetings. I can't see myself saying, here you go to Bureau of Planning, thank you for the coral reef presentation, here's your bill for $400 for the power bill. It just doesn't happen. That's the whole point of trying to get the community out to do that. And I think when you charging too, people expect a level of service. My center compared to another person's center is different. My square footage, what requires it to be paid. So in some sense, an average cost may not happen, because my center can fit 200 people seated down versus Agana Heights versus somebody else. And then the same thing is the kind of chairs, the kind of things I provide. It is on the weekends. We've had a bridal shower yesterday, and we had a family meeting last night. That requires us to go in, open up, take care of everything, the consumables, toilet papers, trash bags, the mop. So the money we do charge, bare minimum we do charge, goes to pay Pine Sol, Clorox, sanitation. And so that's kind of the hardest part here is we do want to grow revenue, but it's how. And besides selling, I sell the backstops of the baseball fields for advertising at $300 a square just for the baseball season, because that's when I know that people are going to use that. But we have organizations like Little League and Cal Ripken and Babe Ruth that don't pay to use the fields, but they're expected of us to say, let me use this.
Mayor, that's some of the innovative ideas that we're talking about here. We're not talking about charging your citizens or your villagers. We're talking about maybe charging for your organizations and charging for advertising within the facilities and those sorts of fees, as opposed to charging the average citizen.
So if there's a standard, like a league I can understand, Senator, but like I said, if the Cruz family says, I want to have a family meeting there, or if the Democratic Party or the Republican Party says, I'm going to use this, they're an organization,
and
it's
those
going to
sorts
be...
of revenues will help subsidize whatever it is that you're paying out to support the community, and that is a really great idea, and so I commend you guys for putting that together.
I mean, there's, of course, a lot of innovative ways to do this, because I remember a long time ago when I was a school principal, and yes, they would ask to come to use my gym or the field, And we do an exchange of things, like the mayor mentioned, is that they may come in and do some repairs to the facility, and that's definitely money then that's not going to be appropriated for repairs. Or they provide like cleaning solutions, or they, can provide supplies in exchange. So that's, for the use of it.
Yeah.
And then the other, of course, sometimes you get these organizations who it's just like, if you say just by donation, because I have to pay for the cleaning fees, utilities, and they would be more than happy because you're not even putting a dollar amount, just by donation to take care of some of these things. So,
I
and
think-
if you need, well, for these things, I know there's been legislation that we passed since the 23rd Guam Legislature, where you can do many of these things and do advertisement on all along your baseball field, from these companies to come there and do that. You can do that as well, and the fence area of your schools, but of course that goes to the schools separately. But I mean, we've given a lot, and trying to be very flexible here to allow schools to generate some money, of course the Mayor's Council to generate money as well.
Yeah, I think it's the difficult part on that is also the reporting requirements that are required of us of the OPA. When we waive something, it's why? What's the reason? Oh, I just got pine salt. Well, is that $300 worth of pine salt, or is it just pine salt? Well, ma'am, there's not much I can write here. This is a family. This is all they have. So it's really hard for me to do that. And in a time when people keep saying, why do you keep waiving fees? The government needs revenue. Well, these are the key reasons, because sometimes we know these people. They come from our communities. They come here knocking at a door as the last resort that, I had a child, it's a great community celebration and partying. We don't want to close the road, so come on over to our community center and enjoy it. So,
And the other thing, of course, I know you've inherited some of these, programs like the senior citizens, and that whatever then the money is that public health, used to get for that, rightfully so, that should be transferred, of course, to, the Mayor's Council. You've also gained the animal control, then whatever monies, no, not yet. So,
Not yet.
but I mean, whatever we, what we give and transfer, then those then need to follow. The money has to follow. The other is that, the last thing that might be able to help you as well is that when there are, very well that yes, very rarely you see individuals actually when they're saying there's going to be a cut, that you're going to actually cut personnel. But what they will do is when they say that they've saved in personnel is the vacant positions that they've saved on. But if there is and that there's this cut that's going to take place, and there may be an accountant from some department of an agency that maybe body and position should actually be transferred then from that department to yours to be able to assist you. You see, so that's one way as well that could be dealt with.
I know the accountant and I don't know if the director mentioned it, even the legal fees came as a recommendation of the OPA because of the NAF audit of a lot of the things, which we remember that whole media stint about I need to get 3 quotes for a case of drink that I'm going to buy to donate. And so that's where it came from. She said if I didn't have to do the audit, I'm fine with that, because then that's less work for me that I have to worry about, because a lot of these things are just done internally, like you say, with the trade-offs and all these things. So maybe that can be revisited in that sense. But she said, you need to get the lawyer to cover your liability. If somebody slips and falls in your community center during a party, are you covered? You'll be surprised what gets covered by and not. So she said you need a lawyer, you need to get an accounting, because I realized that the 19 administrative assistants never had financial degree backgrounds, and we're asking of them now as the legislature and through the law to perform accounting procedures in conjunction with the two at the Mayor's Council to say, here you go, do this, write this. And so they're now saying, okay, if this is going to take up a bulk of what I'm supposed to do, this is what we're saying is that now we've increased their duties and expanded their roles because of recommendations made also by this body to the OPA.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and then open the line of questions by the Oversight Chair, Senator Munya Barnes.
Senator Masi, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the panel members for being here. I've always said that the mayor's work and the vice mayor's work 24/7 for their village residents. There's never a day off. Gov Guam is here to provide for the basic services to our community, and in the essence, those constituents go to you on a daily basis, morning, afternoon, and night. And I understand the frustration of saying, where do we cut? You tell us where to cut, because everything here is crucial. And though as an oversight chair who's been with you guys for 4 terms now, I think it's important to realize that we've got to continue to get creative and think outside the box. I wanted to ask, before I started to tap into the staff, is there any public-private partnerships that you guys are working on today that can help alleviate some of the financial strain that you have?
Not any active one. No. I mentioned earlier that there's maybe something happening for potential for Dedido, but as far as something that's we've gone into, no.
Yeah. I think it's important that we start elevating to that level and seeing what we can do, and maybe even giving you the authority to look into that avenue, because I think it's important that you guys be given the necessary resources that are needed. One of the concerns that have come up to me, and I want to thank the Madam Chair, Speaker Wampat, for delineating specifically the breakdown of how the funds were going to go and where they're going to go to. And, we talk about all the other programs that are worked through the other agencies, like through the pass-throughs with the Visitors Bureau, and we talk about the streets maintenance and beautification, public safety, island-wide village beautification projects. Those, the ground maintenance for the schools. I know that those are the added resources that you guys are given on the side to help augment for the basic services that you do. And trying to keep that intact, I think is very important, and that's going to be difficult for you guys to work with. I bring that up to this level because they're going to ask you to cut there also, and it's like, where do you cut? What we found out when Madam Speaker spoke about the positions within the villages, I do know, or maybe I want to ask, that there are several positions that we've looked over the bill that have not been filled, and maybe you can tell me why, and share with us why those positions aren't filled. For the council administrative, for the Mayor's Council, there's a position in the administrative office. For Asan Maina, there's one position. Hagatna, there's one. Umatic, Agat, and Tamuning. Umatic has 2 positions that have not been utilized, and so is Tamuning Tumon. And I'm just wondering why it wasn't filled. That would bring a total of almost $200,000, $197,000.
I can't speak for the mayors of those villages as to why they have not filled those positions. I know that for Asan and Hagatna, they simply felt that for these unclassified, they always have to find someone within their village to be able to fill that position. Because if the mayor of Hagatna hires somebody from Dedido to be an administrative assistant, they're never going to hear the end of it from the residents of Hagatna. So I know he's been very, very keen on trying to find himself an administrative assistant from the village of Hagatna. Same thing with Asan Maina. And mind you, these are positions that they need people that know the workings of the office. And so just because it's unclassified and they can pick up whoever they want doesn't mean that they're just going to pick them up simply for the sake of filling that position. As far as Umatic, I think the reason that's like that is because before we fill that position with somebody else, there's also annual leave that has to be paid up. So we try to use up that period of time to cover for those costs so that it doesn't become again an additional burden to our budget to immediately hire someone. As far as the one in my office, that's a classified position. As I had mentioned to you earlier, it's a position that pays a little bit over minimum wage, and we just had not a listing from DOA for that position. The unclassified, like I said, it's really up to the mayors.
Has there been a request from the Mayor's Council to ask the Department of Administration to give you a listing? Have you requested in
Yes.
writing?
A long time.
Maybe we can do it again, just to make sure.
But you know, but it's our way of also helping the government go up to save some money.
Well, I for the sake of making sure that these positions are saved, because almost always, if there's a vacancy, it's removed. And that's why I think it's very important that these villages take the opportunity, as there is a request to have 8 additional unclassified FTEs. And I know that it's not in the same villages. I just think it's really important that we
Yeah, but those are unclassified, so I may have to go back and take a look at the current staffing pattern to see whether they have been filled since.
Okay.
I know the
So
messenger
you can-
position has not, but those unclassified could already be moved. It could have already been filled.
The other thing that was brought up by the good speaker was, she brought up the animal control program, and I know that in our commitment at your inauguration ceremony, it was committed by this administration, by the governor, that the funding and the FTEs will go over. Can you give us an update right now as to what happened there? If there was an MOU signed by the Mayor's Council, because there was legislation in place, and it was informed to us that there was no need, because the transfer would happen within the agency and the administration.
I know, Madam Chair, that there's been media on this, that it's going to go to the Mayor's Council of Guam. Same thing with the library. Both of those things have not happened. We have not gotten the animal control, and we have not gotten the libraries. And as to the reason why it has not happened, I can't answer. We're just waiting for the governor's office to give us a status. As far as the library is concerned, I know that it's over at the AG's office, and I think the problem there is that
DCA, Department of Chamorro Affairs.
no, AG's office. Yeah, it's the library is made for in a certain way, and so the AG does the other uses for it. I don't think are allowable, and so that's there. But as far as the animal control, we don't have any update on that, and we don't have any communication either from the governor's office or from the Department of Agriculture as to what's happening with it.
I know on office space rental, there was a request for an increase, bringing the total amount to 104,000. Is there any room in these contracts with the different mayor's office to have power and utilities included into the rent?
For our main office, it is already included. Utilities is included in our lease agreement. For the two, for PD and in Arahan, it's not, but we can ask Father, the priest of both of those villages, if they're willing to negotiate utilities into their terms.
Okay. And I guess with the amount requested for the capital outlay on the 13 different villages, maybe not 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 different villages, has there been any requests to work closely with GURA or any other federal grant that could assess these fees for capital outlay? Just
We have,
cite them
but
back.
many of those villages do not qualify simply because of
I understand. If I'm not mistaken, I think maybe we should revisit it. If I'm not mistaken, I think there was a request to ask that the whole island be under the urban.
Well, we did that, in fact, when we had the 2010 census. We've divided up the island into more than 19 villages. We've cut up Dededo into, I think, 15, 14 different areas. We've tried to do that so that it can be all into that rural area, so that it can be eligible for federal funding through HUD or through GURA or through some USDA. But we are working on that.
Yeah.
The Televoto was successful in one of those. He was able to get his
I think
gym.
it's important that we revisit that
Yes.
again.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, I just heard news recently that Guam as a whole island may be included into that rural perspective through USDA. So I'm just saying, we're looking for identity, not to take away from the resources that are really critically needed. Thinking outside the box, these are things that we may need to tap into for the next couple of months so that we can.
We have, and we're also working closely with Department of Interior to get additional grants to be able to cover for some of these expenses that we're asking for as far as equipment, as far as repairs to our village recreational areas. So we are actively looking into those other areas.
Has there been an update from the Office of Interior into that request?
Yes, in fact, the DOI has approved our request of $500,000. We're just working with the BBMR now to be able to get that all completed.
And do you have a copy of the delineation of
Yes,
what
we do.
If you
And
can
it's
submit
pretty
that,
thick.
yeah, if you can submit that to our office or to the oversight chair of OFD, I would really
Yes.
appreciate it.
And there's another $500,000 that we're working with again with DOI, but this one has to do with FSM citizens and how it affects certain villages as far as services is concerned. We are probably going to get another $500,000 to be able to provide to these villages that have a big population of FSM citizens to be able again to cover some of those programs. We'll give you those reports, and like I said, those funds are welcome. They'll be able to cover for some of these things that we're asking for in our budget, and if they do come our way, then they're sure cut.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I just want you to know that Mayor Tayama, did you want to say anything?
Well,
Better?
I just wanted, good morning, Madam, for the record, my name is Carol Tayama, Mayor of Agate, Madam Speaker and Senators. I just wanted to justify the one vacancy in Agate. That is a full-time maintenance worker who needs to, like what Angel said, exhaust his leave first. There's already one on standby to replace him. So it's really not a vacancy because he has to use up all his leave first before we can hire somebody else to replace him.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Yeah, and that's the way we've been doing. Technically, we could hire, once somebody leaves that position, because we could hire the next day for somebody else. But because we didn't want to double the costs to the personnel by hiring somebody right away and then paying somebody their annual lump sum, we just opt to be able to finish off that amount that we owe them as far as annual leave before we pick up somebody else.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, before I do, I want to welcome also Senator Frank Blas for joining us this morning, and Senator Tony Ada. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Welcome to your legislation. Thank you for being here with us this morning. Angel, I caught a couple of times where you said that if the bid is opened up for the senior citizen centers, the Mayor's Council will not be bidding. Did I hear you correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. So have there already been conversations, because it sounds to me like there have been some unintended consequences or unforeseen perhaps costs between maintenance or needed accounting support now. Have you already been speaking with the front office or with public health and saying that maybe we need to relook at this situation? Because when I talk to seniors, you're doing a good job. They're getting the support, they're getting the program efforts. I was just at Talafofo Jonia Senior Citizen Center during the weekend, and it's just really well kept and a really good feeling there. But are we talking to them and saying that perhaps this program needs to go back to wherever it came from?
Well, maybe not. I don't know if it's going to go back to wherever it came from, but go back to a private entity or a nonprofit organization that may want to set up the program or continue the program. We have been. We discussed with Division of Senior Citizens the fact that we really can't live on this piecemeal basis of we don't know when we're going to get the money or not get the money. And it's not only stresses out our office, but the people that are running those centers. And like I said, we want something more solid. We want something that's more structured. And in that sense, we are talking with them.
Okay,
As
that's
far as whether they're going to go out and put it out for bid, that's a decision that they have to make.
well, I think it's a decision that you have great influence over, because, you know, you go from May 30th to August 2nd, and then, I mean, I agree with you that every few months and then if you didn't get paid the last time around, I mean, that's, you're doing all the work.
Yes.
I mean, and you're talking about your people who are actually working, right? So, you know, I would suggest that serious conversations
Yes,
be had.
after August 2nd, and if we're going to get another one till September 3rd, then we're really going to be seriously talking to them and saying, we cannot continue this way.
And I think, Senator, it's whether or not we do it or somebody else, those things that need to be fixed. So it's going to cost the government either way, through public health requests or the mayor's council requests. And the reservation that we had is we're going to go in there, bring everything up to code, up to standard, and then someone's going to bid out for it and have a jolly old time with it. And I said, you know, that's really not fair for us. So why should we spend up front? So that's the question. Why are we going to spend $40,000, $50,000 to make these simple things that should have been done in the past, for somebody to come in October 1st and say, thank you so much, appreciate it, and, you know, thank you for the shiny new car kind of thing. So that's what we're asking public health to do, is help us along the way here so we can get that. We want our senior program to continue, but at the same time, we know that the request will either come from us or public health or from the nonprofit that ends up taking it to say, you need just new air cons, you need new security systems, you need new fire extinguishers and everything like that. So I think bringing it up to code will always be just a priority for everyone.
And yes, and also I'm sure you'll agree that one of the things that we don't want to happen again is we don't want any of our seniors to wonder who's going to take care of them. So, you know, that a real proactive approach is greatly appreciated, right? I'm also wondering about, you talked about your whole pay structure, and your people are all unclassified, right? So if they're all unclassified, what I heard you saying is it would require policy to put in a pay structure for you, so that, because I'm wondering why you are not already able to determine within your pot of money, right, that you get, how much certain people get and what kind of increment that you could say they earn, right? I mean, you do the evaluations and all of that, and then they can get that increment if you work in your budget.
The problem there, Senator, is that even though our employees, all those that are in the villages, are unclassified, the positions that they take or assume has to be a position that's within the Gulf Guam classification. So in other words, if they are maintenance, we have to follow whatever it is as a classified worker that has the same title, gets paid. We couldn't just go out of the thing and decide what our salary is going to be. We need that through legislation. That's what we're saying. That even if we wanted to take one at the step 1 and go to step 10, we couldn't, because we need to follow, even though they're unclassified, we need to follow the classified personnel rules and regulations.
I don't think so, because if it's an unclassified position, that means at the end of the term, whether you've won or not, that's normally a termination date. And then when that happens, then you can either reconfigure, say, I need more maintenance rather than another individual, then you can do that as well. So that's
No.
totally up to the mayors to
As far
decide.
as we couldn't get more personnel, Senator. It's
No,
the law says.
like, for example, if you didn't want a clerk, or you want maintenance, then you could convert.
But that's just it. The Title 5, Chapter 40
That's
tells
for
you how
classified,
many.
but that's
Tells
for
you how
classified
many. No,
people.
it tells you how many clerks are allowed in the mayor's offices, and tells you how many maintenance staff are allowed. It's specific in number.
Then, if that's the kind of language that needs to be changed, then of course the
Yes.
input would have to come, from you to give you that flexibility to decide what it is.
And
you're
that's what we're
deciding.
asking for. Right now it says each mayor can get 1 clerk, and a vice mayor can get 1 clerk, and there's 5 maintenance. That's it.
And then, along the lines of, as Madam Speaker is saying, we need that specific input about what needs to be changed. Again, I heard you say that no matter which village it is, the configuration is that there will be, there's a certain standard at the very beginning, 5 maintenance workers per village, right?
Yep.
So for me, again, I always go back to one size doesn't fit all. And so that has to be policy language change? I don't understand why.
Well, right now, the statute says 5.
Okay, so then that is a
Yes.
shift. And then before you take over animal control in libraries, I really hope that everything we've learned about taking over even more. I mean, you guys, I'm so sorry. The mayors and the assistant mayors do so much for our families, and so I hope we really talk out everything that could happen, might happen, and make sure that you get the kind of support that is needed before you take even more. Thank you for the conversation, and I look forward to when you forward the updated information to Madam Speaker and to Senator Munoz-Barnes. I look forward to seeing that, so that when we go further into budgets, we can see how we can further.
Yeah, we'll include those upcoming funds that we anticipate will be coming our way. We'll include it so that it can give you greater leverage as to how you're going to decide where you want to cut.
It sounds helpful. You're writing for grants, you're already reaching out, and those are big amounts of money that sounds like you might be getting, so I appreciate you taking the initiative in doing that. But on the other side, it's real clear that there are some huge issues that do need to be addressed. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Welcome, Senator Mana-Tahiran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the mayors for keeping the villages functioning and always being so resourceful and making things happen despite your limitations and your lack of funding. And of course, if we could find it within our means, we would definitely give you a pay raise, 90% of, I said if we could find it, but being the circumstances being as they are, the entire government is looking at cuts. I was listening to you talk about the lump sum leave for your employees. Was the figure $500,000 to pay out at the end of the year?
I believe $600,000.
600. Would it be possible to ask the employees or require of the employees to use their leave? So that's the difficulty. No one would work.
Because they're exiting and changing position.
With the number of employees that we have in our villages, even for 1 or 2 people to be out in any given day is really difficult for us to function. So to ask them to require them to take the leave that they've accrued over the last 4 years is really difficult to operate in the villages.
Okay. With regard to getting some of your additional support, how has it been working? Is there an MOU with the Department of Corrections or Parole to use some of their folks?
What we've done is, the Department of Corrections have all these people that are sitting idle. They don't have the equipment. We give them the equipment that we have in our villages, and they come out and help us. I use them, so I purchase additional equipment that I have for the school cutting or school maintenance, and they come out. So the only difference that I'm not paying a contractor. They don't just help me with the schools. They also help me. My 5 maintenance cannot maintain all of the village roadways, the secondary roads that we have. So they also assist us with that, as well as our parks. So the agreement that we have is with the Director of Department of Corrections and his officers and our office. There's no formal written agreement. It's just the verbal understanding. We feed them, they come out and really make a difference in assisting us with the manpower.
You talk about Department of Correction, but there's another area that we may be able to get some equipment from to save some money. And we understand the regulations of DRMO, and this is the surplus property that comes from the military. And although the mayors are on that list to be able to tag property and be able to probably be lucky and get it, we're I think number 10, 11 down the list. It's always a law enforcement entity that gets first dibs about getting any of this equipment. And that's been our concern, is that we try to fight and say that mayors and vice mayors are also law enforcement because they're peace officers. But be as it may, it's always the Guam Police Department that gets all of these equipment firsthand when it comes out of DRMO. And that's fine. Maybe what we need is, after they get it, maybe somebody can propose legislation that these heavy equipment that they do tag and do get, that they be given to the Mayors Council of Guam, because it's the Mayors Council, the villages that need it. I don't see how a dump truck is needed at the Guam Police Department, or a welding machine, or a backhoe. I mean, sure, they can tag it and get it for the Governor of Guam, but can there be legislation proposed that once they get it, they turn around and transfer it to the people that need it, like the Mayors Council of Guam? By the time they give it to us, I mean, they do think of us every once in a while, but by the time they give it to us, it's equipment that has already been cannibalized. It's equipment that's already hardly working, has only 1 out of 4 tires. And so, we accept it because we take anything to make it work. But, if they could give it to us when it was still working, we could be able to, and these are ways where we don't have to come and ask that we be funded for a backhoe or we be funded for a dump truck. I mean, I've seen generator floodlight sets that have been sitting in the parking lot of GPD for so many months. I mean, forklifts, if they need it, fine, but if they don't need it, they should just transfer it to the Mayor's Council of Guam, because we do need it. We need any kind of heavy equipment. We just went through heavy weather tabletop exercise, and knock on wood, and we don't get a storm, because if we do, we don't have anything. We don't have any of those heavy equipment that's available to the mayor's offices to be able to clear roads or to cut down the tangantangan or to evacuate people. But other agencies that are really not in that business have it. And if it could just be, equipment can be put in the right places with the right people, maybe the backhoe doesn't have to be sitting there 6 months out of the year. Maybe a mulcher doesn't have to be sitting at an agency, only for Christmas. Maybe it can be used year-round by the mayor's offices. Things like this. I mean, as earlier we all talked about this being one government, and we all want to help each other and all want to have where we can have resources to help one another out. Like I said, we are on that list for DRMO, but it's hardly that we have any luck in getting anything. And by the time we tag something that's real good, Mayor Tayama will tag it today. She comes in tomorrow, it's gone. Somebody else took it. Vice Mayor Hoffman says, I want that box truck because it's good for carrying the bush cutters around. 6 hours later, comes to check, it's already again gone. It's tagged by another agency. So if these agencies want it, sure, because they are eligible to get it first place, all we ask is that they consider transferring out from them to us, because they really, it's like they're just tagging everything just for the sake of taking it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Senator Duenas.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the council. We all are going to make the statement because we know that you do tremendous amount of work for this community and have assumed over the years responsibilities that continue to be left undone by other line agencies. I'm only going to make one statement and ask one question of you, Angel, and that is, in the discussion of the overall scheme of things and the requested look at the general budget and reduction by $40-some million, I think it's going to be important at this point, after hearing your presentation, to at least get to the point of working with the governor's office to ensure that you maintain a status quo budget at a minimum. Because I just think that it's going to be unfeasible with the services that you provide. But I just want to also tag on that statement and saying that I think it's going to be very difficult to reach any of the requests above that, though. And so I think you've been very fair, and the mayors have been very fair in saying that we're going to have to really buckle down this year and get moving on the initiatives of giving you more ability to work with the private sector to generate revenue through your programs. One thing of interest that you mentioned, Angel, was the issue with regard to your small business contracts. I agree with you. I think there are individuals within the village that, and this is what we all talk about, you know, in terms of building small business. Absolutely. So what I would like you to do, Angel, is please write to us, you know, formally, and give it to us in writing in terms of the different issues you have, so we can work. I don't think it's going to require legislation. I think we can get an AG's opinion. We can work with GSA and perhaps even the OPA on a standard by which these businesses are evaluated, and the difference between the contractual prices, because you're right, you can save a lot of money on those grass cutting contracts with village small business, 1-2 person business. They don't have to have, you know, gas money and transportation to transport their bush cutter and their lawnmower because they're already in the village, and that's how they start. That's how they begin, and you can save thousands and thousands of dollars with regard to that. And I think we could come up with a possible priority status on that, because you're going to oversee the work. It's not going to be substandard because it has to be done. And so it's just that you were right, Angel, that folks like that want to start a business like that in their village, they don't have the overhead costs that other big businesses do of moving the vehicles and the other costs of insurance and the like. A lot of these people are self-employed at that point, but at least it gives them something to do and puts money in their pocket. Or, as you said, nonprofit organizations. So I think we can start there, even with one thing, to realize thousands in savings. So if you'd send that letter to us, we can forward it from the legislator's perspective in order to work with the respective regulatory agencies to see if it actually requires legislation, or if there is procurement code that could allow for that thing to move forward. So once again, I just want to state for the record, I mean, I don't know promises, but I think the reality is going to be that at a minimum, we're going to have to keep you at status quo. One other point, I think, Angel, that at the as we see the picture, just so that, because we're going to be managing very tight funds, you guys, I think what we can do is visit the appropriation as a separate appropriation on your lump sum, and so we can get an idea as we go down the line with regard to that, because that's a government of Guam obligation. I mean, it's not something that, even if it wasn't in your budget, we can't not pay people for accrued leave that they're entitled to. So I'm just saying, I think if we gave you a status quo budget, and then, you know, your overriding concern was what's going to happen on the overlap when it comes the change of employee status and those that are entitled, I think we can work with that without it being an appropriation at this point, just to keep the book straight. But I'm going to give you the assurance that I'll ensure to work with BBMR and work with the committee to ensure that that's a realization. But I think if we get to a more accurate figure, it might allow us for that flexibility of budgeting and for the overall budget when we sign off on it.
Thank you. And we have been in communication with the governor. We have had actually personal talks with him. And of course, he's told us that even though he loves his directors and deputy directors, he loves the mayors and vice mayors more. Okay.
Thank you. Senator Ada?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to comment on the DRMO exchange with law enforcement. Yeah, I believe there's some type of restrictions that prohibits law enforcement from transferring in and out of equipment. So you may want to check that with the program coordinator, with the LISO program coordinator, and find out what those restrictions are, whether they're allowed to transfer it from law enforcement to a non-law enforcement agency. So
yeah, there's a certain amount of time that they have to wait before they transfer it. But maybe before they tag it and take it, say, have the Mayor's Council tag it and be the ones to take it in the beginning.
yeah, so I think if you just work it out with the
We have.
coordinator.
They've called us up to their storage areas to pick what we want there. But unfortunately, it's after when it's just been picked over, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I just have one last question. I know it's usually under DOE's budget, but then in this case, was through legislation that I had actually taken out the total amount of ground maintenance of the schools to now give it to the mayors. And in the beginning, you see, when I first broached this with the mayors, it was exactly just that, is to be able to allow you to do one of several things. The very first things, of course, was that you find nonprofit organizations in your community, organizations and clubs, and even your PTO, if they wanted to do it, because many times there was PTOs who were doing this. The other was that, which was brought up by Mayor Savares, is that she wanted to just stay with some of the smaller businesses and contractors within her village, of course, and first priority be given, to them. And the other is that the last option was that if it was done by the mayors initially, is that then there would be a need to purchase, the equipment for this, and the equipment that you have then, of course, stays with your office, and that it can be used not just on the school maintenance, but even the streets, you're right, and your village streets, making then the second year where there will be savings, because already you have the equipment and the rest now is just for supplies. But, of course, I don't know how many of the mayors have done that, and that's maybe, maybe later on we'll give you a call to find out how that has happened. This is a little bit different now with the grounds maintenance. It's done specifically by the size of your grounds. It's not that every one of you are going to get the same dollar amount, because you have no formula for your staff or anything else, but definitely for grounds, it's based on your actual, grounds
The acreage, yes.
in the schools. So
And that's the way we've been doing it.
you're right. And so, I was talking to some of the mayors, and some, I go back please to make sure, because some said that they just didn't want to do it anymore. And, and I don't, it's got to be all or not. I don't want to be able to allow schools to be able to go out or the department to go and find somebody to do the yards for certain schools, but rather it be done entirely by, the mayors and how you decide to do it. Of course, we give you that flexibility. But if there is then, and this is a general question overall now for the Mayor's Council, that if there's any legislation which you feel that really ties your hands to be able to make, some of these, your functions rather, run smoothly, please let us know. Let the chairman know as well, so that we can actually consider that as language to put in the budget, then to give you that flexibility. Like, for example, you said you want to be able to hire small businesses, then to be able to, or nonprofit organizations to be able then for you to contract out the grounds maintenance of the schools.
Yeah. Speaker, I just wanted to assure that the verbiage on the ground maintenance for the school will be kept as it is in this fiscal year's budget, because it's a lot easier now. The vendors that we have, or even the supplies and material, the equipment that we need to purchase, the money is actually given to us on a quarterly basis.
Yes.
And the vendors are much happier versus the vendors that, the process of payment.
Yes, and I know the
is-
first time we did it, we
Yes.
found a lot of kinks, and we've been fixing it every year. So the language that we have currently,
Yes.
then you're happy with?
Keep that language
Okay.
on, and we even had to, even that account is being audited by the OPA. We have a new, our poor treasurer, we had to open a separate account at the bank, at the Bank of Guam, separate from our Mayors Council dues and stuff. But the treasurer now spends, I think, once a week, just writing out checks to the invoices that, for the gas and the supplies that were purchased for the ground maintenance of the schools. But that's very important, it's very critical, especially if we work with, when we continue to work with the vendors of the school contractors.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been working out,
Well,
that
that's
part.
good to hear then. So-
Maybe if you can make it more, it says grass cutting for schools, but some principals think that ponding basins are part of
Yes,
that.
I know,
Tangan, 6 inches.
We tried, remember, we changed it, that's true, and in our conversation with the superintendent also, and we will bring that up, that you're right, it's strictly grass cutting,
Yeah.
and it's not to do beautification, and other requests by the school principals, yeah. Understand? Well, it's 11:05. I know we are over by 35 minutes for the next office, but I want to thank you very much. I want to continue to keep the dialogue open for you to be able to come and meet, of course, with not only the staff of Senator Pangilinan, but including Senator Pangilinan as well. So thank you very much. So this concludes at least the first
This is Marcy.
series of budget hearings for the Mayor's Council, and we'll just take a minute break to allow them then to move out and have the OPA come in for the next budget hearing. Thank you very much, Mayors. Mayor's Council to the Office of Public Accountability, and for those who are just tuning on, and for everyone really, is that Senator Pangilinan, of course, apologizes for his absence during these hearings. He is, and this of course is great news, he's currently in Washington, D.C., and will be delivering a keynote address to the 7th Annual Bond Buyer Financing Military Housing Privatization Conference. Wow, what a mouthful. Regarding the Military Housing Privatization Initiative. All hearings here will be transcribed, and OFB staff has prepared analysis of each of the budget requests that's been sent to the legislature. So we would proceed, of course, the way we're going to do this is that we would allow those who are testifying on behalf of their budget, and then after your presentation, then I would be going through the analysis, of course, by OFB, and then, have a few questions and open it up as well for members to ask any questions. I know that we kind of shorted you by 30 minutes, but we will restore it if we need to give you some time then, to defend your budget. But you're originally scheduled for about an hour and a half, so that means, so that way we need to remind ourselves so that we don't go over either. So we'll go ahead and proceed, and I'd like to ask, of course, the public auditor, if you can just introduce the staffers that you've brought with you.
Good morning, Madam Speaker and fellow senators. Thank you very much. We're pleased to be here. For the record, I am Doris Flores-Brooks, the public auditor, and with me to my left is Rosalyn Marquez, my audit supervisor, and to her left is Jarek Hernandez, who was assisted in the development of the budget. Likewise, to my right is Joy Bellato, also an auditor who assisted in the development of the budget process. So I thought it would be appropriate to bring them here in case you ask me questions that I'm not able to answer. But let me just kind of summarize my budget. I do apologize. I came in over the weekend, so I don't have a formal letter in front of me. I have drafted portions of my letter. But after hearing certain things, maybe I'm just going to talk a little bit extemporaneously and then put everything in writing, because there's about 2 or 3 areas that I really wanted to comment on. And of course, the first, in the context of what Senator Chris Duenas had said earlier about, this is a very difficult time. We understand, the governor's asking for $40 million reduction overall. And if you were to look at that context, OPA has had significant problems for the last 8 years, let me just say this, in recruiting and retaining qualified staff. As a result of that, we have significant personnel lapses. In fact, that has been our problem continuously. We've never been able to reach the maximum when we had at one time 19 employees in our office. We've never been able to recruit that. The request to do audits is always more than what we can. Right now, we're at the second lowest level we've ever been. 9 was the lowest we're now at 12. The second lowest we've ever been since the time I even opened the office, because in the last we've lost 3 people, most of them my senior people. What happens is after a good time, they become much more valuable. They're recruited off to other agencies like GPA, DOE, who can pay them significantly higher. And recruiting at Department of Administration is excruciatingly slow. Excruciatingly slow. I mean, I just found out while I was away that we don't even have a position open for an Auditor 1. DOA said that because it was supposed to have been on continuous announcement. We had an intern who wanted to apply. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's no position opening." Yet we have 7 vacancies, and again, I don't want to belabor the problems we have at DOA. It's just very bureaucratic. It's very slow. So those are part of the reasons why. And the amount that OPA has expended in the last 5 years has been almost at a plateau because we've never been able. Every time we recruit, we lose. We recruit, we lose. We're at a status quo. So looking where to cut, you could very easily cut out all of our vacancies. And what is that going to save you? What, $500,000 maybe at the very, very most? And then the request, I have before Senator Pangilinan, who's not here, has been very prolific in asking us to do audits as well as other senators. And we try to give those priority over other things that we're working on. Let me just talk about the status of my office right now. I have, with 12 people, I have 4 senior auditors who've been with me, fortunately, very fortunately, for over 8 years on average. Okay, 4 senior auditors. They together don't even average $50,000 per person. $50,000 after 8 years in government service. Okay, I have 6 junior auditors, 6 junior auditors whose average tenure is less than 2 years. Jarek probably is the longest with 3 years, and Joy just turned 2 years. The rest, are 2. So I have a big gap, and it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 years to really train them. I was very happy with these 2 and helping prepare and put together the budget. Their first time, and they did an admirable job. But the training and all, this is our continuous problem. So we could be a very easy target for you to take away, and what can I say? But where the millions of dollars that you can find is in, if you were to look at our reports, like in the non-productive pay for firemen, all kinds of, if you were to look at our first report, we identified over $3.5 million that could easily save this government, and I had to plead before the governor, because being under Department of Administration, we are treated as if we are a line agency, when in fact we are not a line agency. We are under the executive branch. I don't dispute that, but we're not a line agency that's answerable to the governor. And so I had to plead before the governor to allow me to hire, because the executive order that went out to say, to freeze recruitment was DOA was applying also to our office. I had to plead before the governor to ask that not be applied to us, and of course recognizing the fact that this is an elected office and with a very limited budget, did allow that. But since that time, they drag their feet the other way by not allowing us to recruit. The pickings from which we have are few and far between, and it is a slow process. So that is the context upon which I'm asking my next request, is to allow the auditors at OPA to be given overtime and compensatory time off. My auditors do work overtime, but we're not allowed to have overtime because we are considered exempt. Okay. Yet nurses get overtime. There's many different classes of employees that get overtime. We are not allowed because we are considered exempt. I ask, after all these years, after 10 years in this office, that now, now that my office is a classified employees, that I need to find ways to how to compensate them, because if I lose my 4 senior auditors, each time oh boy, another one. I've accepted that as a way of life, and I feel flattered that they want to recruit the employees of OPA, and I have to come to accept. But the turnover to develop them is not there, because coming in is a slower process that takes. And to help keep those, as well as even the junior auditors, the additional compensation that is needed. So that is the primary request that I'm asking, that the auditors that there be a change in law to allow the opportunity to pay overtime as appropriate, as needed, not as a way of life like we do in certain agencies where it is a way of life. It's an automatic 14 hours like in the fire department, and compensatory time off. These are tools, senators, that help in the management of your personnel, to give employees the opportunity. What do they want? Time off? Do they want additional pay? And so that is the primary thing that I want to mention. The other thing that I would also like to ask is to be allowed the carryover. Now, carryover after the governor's lapse, all right, we will have more than $300,000 in lapses this year because of the slow recruitment. The 15% reserve imposed by the governor will be more than able to meet. That's $191,000. No questions asked. You can take it away, no problem. And the thing that we're asking is to be given the authority, in the event we should ever come to recruit the number of people that we need. We know that does take time, but in the event, if we don't use it, it doesn't add to the deficit. Okay, but if we should by chance use a portion of it, at least it gives us the flexibility to do that. So we be given that authority because the Mayors Council and the elected AG, the Legislature, the University of Guam, the Judiciary, GCC, all have been given that authority to carry over. And I recognize this government is in a precarious situation, but let's not be penny wise and pound foolish in where you make those cuts. So in sum, that's real. The other thing that I wanted to mention, kind of as an aside, in my budget I put in there $10,000 to host the POSI conference in 2013. The date is scheduled for September 2013. I just found out that POSI, when I was asked to host, I didn't ask the details, right? When you're asked to be the host, you don't always ask for the details, right? Because, you've been asked. I did not volunteer to be the host. I was asked to be the host. So later on in checking out the details, to my surprise, POSI does not pay for anything, and we don't charge registration, and so that's why I put in their money for the hosting. And in fact, I found out even more that I'm still in the process of negotiating with them. How much, what can you give us, at least in the form of either the per diem that you're going to, instead of it being paid to the members, be paid to OPA and stuff. But anyway, I may need a little additional more money for that, but I think within the amount that has been budgeted, it should be more than adequate. But that's the nice thing I want to just say. In 2013, in fact, in September of 2013, Guam OPA will be hosting POSI, that stands for the Pacific Association of Supreme audit institutions. These include, this organization is a